welcome everyone. This is the SuperWorld show. Today we have Dmitry Buterin. Go ahead, Nate, and go ahead with the intro.
Hey, I'm Nate. Welcome everybody to our second episode. We have Dmitry Buterin. It's a very special guest. We're extremely excited. As you all know, SuperWorld is on the Ethereum network. And some people have referred to this guy as the grandfather of Ethereum, but I don't like to do that because he's so young. It feels kind of silly. But
I love silly. Silliness is the ultimate power.
I bet that feels good to be able to say that, right?
Yeah. It is true.
Well, it's great to have you, and I know we're super excited. We didn't really tell anybody about this either because we didn't want to like jinx it or something, you know. So we're super excited to have you, man. And yeah, we've got all kind of crazy stuff to get into. I guess we could start a little bit with your background and just kind of explain, you know, how you got to where you're at in terms of being in Canada right now and where you grew up and everything.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I grew up in the Soviet Union, and in the southern region of that, it's called Chechnya. Pretty beautiful and crazy place. And then I went to Moscow to study computer science, and I lived in Moscow for about 10 years. And then I left Moscow end of '99 and I went to Canada. So I've been living here in Toronto for 21 years. Actually, the city where I've lived the longest is Toronto. And yeah, so I always been a geek, if you will, and loved science and stuff. And then kind of when computer stuff became somewhat available back in the Soviet Union, and then I started computer science. Then I very accidentally ended up being an entrepreneur. And then I, over 20 somewhat years, built a number of businesses. And then the last one of them I sold a few years ago called Wild Apricot. It was software for nonprofits. And I've been in crypto space. Like I'm involved with this company called Blog Geeks as an investor and mentor. That's a kind of company, they provide education for people around the blockchain stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of me. And nowadays, I mostly, if you read my Twitter bio, right, I say that I'm a philosopher and I love soap bubbles, and and I have a curious consciousness. And I say that because quite often people have all of those things and achievements in their bios, right? And that's amazing, you know, lots of love to people for all of their achievements and things and whatnot. But the thing is, like, a couple of things, right? One is when you look closely at any of your achievements, right, you kind of realize how many things really had to go into that for this thing to happen. So kind of your claim, oh, this is my achievement, it's pretty ridiculous, right?
Right.
And then the other side of this is also, I was at this retreat some years ago, and the guy who runs those retreats, one of the questions really kind of connected with me deeply. And the question is, who are you without your job, without your relationship, you know, without your hobby, without all of this stuff? Because people like to define themselves by something outside, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a father. I'm a character guy or whatever. I'm an artist. Mm-hmm. Okay. What's beyond there, right? Like when you go really deep in there.
Yeah. Have you read Untethered Soul, by the way?
Love it. I was just today recommending that their other book of this guy is The Surrender Experiment, right?
Yeah.
And then
I love that book
Untethered
too.
Soul. Yeah. Michael, what's his name? Anyways,
Singer.
Yeah.
Michael Singer. That book opened my eyes to, I think, a lot of that kind of questioning of like who you are, who am I?
Yes.
And by the way, just on your background, you know, in terms of the research we did and stuff, I know you grew up around a lot of books and kind of learning and opportunities to learn. How did you kind of go towards computer science? What was the interest or draw there?
Well, again, I'm very curious, right? So I was reading a lot of books about science and math and physics and science fiction. And then eventually I came across some books about electronics and what was called cybernetics back then, right? And basically, the more complex the system, the more material it gives you for kind of being curious about it and trying to mess with it and trying to kind of see, or what can you do with the system to so that it will do something else that was designed, right? So kind of like from that, then I learned, oh, there's this thing called computers, right? And my first quote unquote computer was this little stupid Soviet-made programmable calculator, which had a memory of 100 bytes. And it was really painful to do the programming, but it was like so fascinating. Like you do this, and then this thing calculates, and you could play this with 100 bytes of memory. You could play this little game of this, and it was so amazing to kind of. And
cool.
So when I was at the end of my high school, was looking for a career, I'm like, yeah, I want to go into something to do with computers, and yeah, kind of computer science. Discovered that and never looked back.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so cool. And was there like an event that kind of, when you were learning all this stuff, you know, I know that you're saying it's kind of hard to get your hands on that technology when you grow up in that kind of government, and especially in that time period, you know, everybody in that region, I'm sure education suffered because of it. Was there something that prompted you to want to leave and pursue your education in computer science elsewhere? Was there an event that kind of pushed you over the edge?
I got my education in computer science still within the Soviet system, right? I just kind of, there was this book with a list of all the universities, and I just looked at this because, again, like Soviet Russia, you know, Soviet Union was all centrally planned. So it was all organized. These are the universities. They all run by the government. Here's the book which lists all the universities. Here's the structure of all the potential types of education you can get. So I kind of researched that, like, oh, here's their kind of in this structure, there are a few things related to computers, and there were like a handful of universities, and then I found one that was in Moscow, and I actually realized that one guy that I knew went to that university, and then like just went there, because actually it was in the suburb of Moscow called Zelenograd, a beautiful city, and it was an attempt by the Soviet Union in like late 70s. They wanted to basically repeat the Silicon Valley, if you will. So Zelenograd is a place where they've built their microchip factories, and we're doing a lot of this stuff. And the university that I went to was their foundation of this whole microchip industry, and then eventually their computer industry. And nothing ever kind of really came out of that. But I mean, some things came out of this, but it was mostly a big bust.
Is it where Skolkovo is now, or?
No, Skolkovo is different thing. Yeah, no, it's much more modern. It's kind of like Skolkovo is maybe 10, 15 years old, and this goes back like 50 years.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rich, you lived in that region quite a bit, and your wife's from over there, and it's kind of interesting the connection you two have. You two were speaking to each other before the interview. You should ask him a question in his own language. Let's see what happens. I'm kind of curious. I think our viewers will think it's fascinating.
Я говорю по-русски, потому что да, я учил русский язык в Украине, я жил в Киеве, так это важно для меня, это район, и я чувствую как славянский человек в моем сердце.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And пользуясь случаем, разрешите мне передать привет всем русским и сказать, что меня не держат в заложниках.
Да. Yeah.
They said that I have a silly looking face for everybody who's wondering. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But no, it's so cool.
So ugly.
You know your friends when you can call somebody ugly.
Yeah.
No, that means that you like me. I'm gonna take it as a compliment.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I think that's super cool because growing up that way, and the way that you are involved in such a decentralized space now, coming from such a centralized system, I can see where not only why you would want to be a part of it, but why you'd want to be kind of at the forefront of this. It's kind of,
for sure.
It's pretty obvious.
That gave me a lot of passion because I saw it firsthand. How messed up their humanities attempts at running centralized systems, right? And kind of also the more I learned about the world and how things work, like if we look at the human body, if you look at any kind of system out there that's successful over long term, right? Like look again at Ethereum community. Why is it so successful? And many reasons, but one of the reasons is because it's so decentralized, right? It's not EOS. It's not like this and that. It's like a bunch of people, they all doing their things and fucking up in different ways and being creative in different ways. And then we have DeFi and now we have NFTs. And I can guarantee you these are not the last, things that emerge from the Ethereum ecosystem. Lots more to come for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting.
What we're doing with SuperWorld is interesting too. Like there's a lot of things, like we're selling plots of, virtual real estate mapped over the real world. And these are things that nobody even thought would be possible. And the fact that it's decentralized on top of it, if we're looking at a digital world one day, we don't want it to be run by nefarious powers. We'd like it to be decentralized, obviously. So it's cool that ETH offers that ecosystem for us to exist on, to be real.
For sure.
Yeah, do you think things like that, like AR and VR, if you're living in an oppressive regime, do you think that it kind of offers a way out, or do you think it's just kind of a band-aid, this change of perception, this kind of identification with the reality that maybe isn't there?
It's a very difficult question, right? Because in a way, it's like, even if you ask about meditation, right? As you well know, I'm sure that meditation can be a wonderful way to understand yourself and the universe and all of that, and can also end up being a way to escape. Oh, like, fuck this unjust world. Let me go into this cave and meditate, and I don't care, and pretend that I don't care. People try different things, and then, we all, if you will, experiments run by the universe. So. This is
it's like a guess and check process that the universe is running on everything. Oh, that exploded. Oh, this. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love watching people like Neil deGrasse Tyson's like an easy example, but there's so many fascinating people right now that are very good at explaining to like people like me who aren't super educated, like what they think this all means. And I think that's what's cool is you're kind of trying to bring that to the tech side a little bit, this mindfulness. And we kind of touched on that before the show. What ways do you see mindfulness becoming very impactful in this next generation in terms of technology?
So technology is very complicated, right? So this means that you have to have a pretty high IQ to interact with or at least build technological things, right? And a lot of our at least early creations of technology industry, they required quite a high load of from our analytical mind. So people who end up, and we're born here with a certain set of predispositions, including our genetics, in terms of our IQ and how our emotions are handled and stuff like that, right? So what we see in them is that people who have been gifted in this lottery high IQ, they end up working with technology, right? And their mind is a very important tool that supports their journey in that particular industry to success and all kinds of amazing things. However, as is always the case, when we have a particular tool and we are successful with that tool, then it's like, oh, here's a hammer, everything is a nail, right? Boom, boom, boom. And then we use our intellect, not just like for designing computers and code, which is awesome match, but then we try to use our intellect for figuring out our relationship, ourselves and stuff like that. And this is where we totally fail, because however amazing our intellect is it's no match to their infinite reality of a single human, much less of this infinite universe, right? So for me, I think it's inevitable that everybody, many people, if you will, in their technology industry, they end up overusing their analytical brain, and many of them achieve huge successes, but also many of them, they face their the dark side of that, as they struggle with their emotional well-being, they struggle with relationships and things like that, right? And human being, again, we are so vast. It's like our career successes and financial successes, they are some of the aspects of us, but then our ability to be full of happiness and joy and be in a relationship and be a parent. That's kind of, they're all extremely important aspects of human beings, right? So for me, mindfulness and if you will, the emergence of this accessible mindfulness that we see in the last, let's say, decade or two is a wonderful reaction of the universe to support this, like, if you will, rebalance kind of what we have seen, like going so much toward this technological progress and stuff like that, and it's amazing. And now people also realizing their the shadow side, the dark side of things like social media and all of, again, like our constant thinking and so on.
And how do you how do you like do that in your daily life? Like, how do you what's your daily life like, and how does that relate to what you do?
I do have a luxury of being able to spend more time in that. And for the last years, I've been typically doing a couple of meditation sessions every day. Cool. And nowadays, it's usually kind of 1 hour each meditation session. And I have also explored some other tools and methods for being more connected with myself, from various breathing things to medicines and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm big into
plant
medicine.
I wanted to ask about.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about, do you think that that'll eventually bring us closer to kind of discovering the side of ourselves? Like you said, there's this darkness that we all kind of have been attracted towards with the tech side of just work, achievement.
Yeah.
And mindfulness is maybe the light that's pulling us, the equal opposite reaction, to pulling us in the opposite direction.
It's pretty inevitable.
So like, do you think compounds like DMT would maybe be that nature's way of offering us release at this point, or do you think it's just by total accident?
It's a very tricky question. Like, I want to start with the fact is, like, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm thinking you're probably under 40.
I'm 33.
I'm 45.
Oh, you're 45. Okay, so you look awesome, man. I love you.
Yeah, I was gonna say he looks younger than I do. Once again.
So it's Harish, you're probably well familiar with the fact that when people talk about this middle life crisis, right? It's a real thing. It's like people, we run for many decades with all those programs in our head, like, oh, we have to achieve this, we have to succeed, and then we will be happy, and we do all of this, for many years, for decades, and then where's that happiness? Where's that peace they have promised? It's not coming, right? So then, like, okay, what else is out there, right? And this is a kind of huge transition for many people, and it typically happens, if you will, in late 30s, kind of early 40s, late 40s, kind of like in that time range for many people. And there are so many ways, so many tools available. And you mentioned DMT, and DMT is like, in general, I'm a big fan of psychedelics as a way to realize, like, oh, there's so much more in me. There's so much more in the universe than I ever thought possible, right? And but it's also, if you will, those tools, you have to approach them with a lot of respect, with a lot of caution, with a lot of
reverence, really. I
mean, compassion, if you will, and gentleness, reverence, for sure, right? And also for, like, again, our analytical mind jumps in and says, hey, I've been struggling, I'll have some, DMT, I'll be good. Like, the universe says, like, fuck you, like, go and do that. Or,
gonna make you figure it out.
Some ayahuasca, and maybe you will scream and, struggle on the floor for many hours, and we'll see that, right? So, like, for me personally, it was Sam Harris's book Waking Up that kind of first got me into this, and it's an awesome book, and I love Sam Harris. And kind of he mentioned, oh, there are these things that can be shortcut to 20 years of meditation. I'm like, what? Drugs? What do you mean? And let me look into that. And the way I think about them, they are awesome tools that can be really awesome ways to get a preview, to kind of see, right? Once you see that there is more, then the mind wants to go deeper into that stuff, right? And then things like, again, meditation, breathing, and all kinds of body-related methods and somatic things in therapy, they are all really important aspects of overall progress of the human. And there's one guy who has this framework, if you will, it's of a human life, which is waking up, cleaning up, growing up, and showing up, right?
Mhm.
So I really like that framework. And those tools that you mentioned, they're pretty awesome for achieving, for waking up. And again, they're not a silver bullet, but this is kind of, it's not like, oh, I've got some DMT and I'm now the truth of the universe and I'm so happy. No, like you can struggle for many more years or decades after that.
Mm-hmm. Have you read the book Stealing Fire? Have you heard of that?
Yes, Jamie was his name.
I can't remember. Yeah, it's a good one.
I read the book and I actually met the author. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's just, I think it's kind of bringing out the fact that a lot of people in a variety of places and industries and all over the world are kind of realizing kind of the benefits of going into a state of ecstasy and waking up and being able to do things that potentially they might not have been able to do or realize about themselves had they not been in that state. And there's a lot of ways to get there, whether it's meditation or psychedelics or other plant medicine or even doing things that put you at the edge of jumping out of a plane or something like that, which I think all of these
things
are really...
but yes.
Yeah, exactly. Not mine either.
I'm afraid of heights. Honestly, your view there would probably freak me out. I'm in that sort of waking up, like you're talking about those kind of 4 stages or whatever. I'm sort of in that stage of waking up and kind of self-discovery. I'm 33. I feel like I just kind of learned like that I don't know anything essentially. And a lot of those psychedelics have aided me in that process, essentially in forgiving people in my past that I thought had maybe wronged me, because that kind of just cleared the path for me to be more loving, which is essentially providing me with success.
Let me comment on that too, because forgiveness is, if you will, there are so many layers to that, because forgiving people for what we perceive the way they wronged us is awesome, and there's a lot of healing happens at this point. But a deeper layer is actually awakening to their inside realization to the fact that there was nothing wrong in the first place. And this one is much deeper, right? And much harder to kind of grab. But, because the first layer, it can be, for some people, they kind of like just end up being really good at brainwashing themselves. Oh, I forgave them. But, when you're really stressed out, then, your real truth will come to the surface. And so kind of there are like many Wayne layers Dyer. Of deep integration. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wayne Dyer he's this philosopher type, I guess, like motivational speaker type. A lot of people know him. His whole thing on that was, like, why does juice come out of an orange when it's squeezed? And it's because a lot of people are like, pressure. Well, no, juice is what's inside. Pressure is what was applied to this thing to make the juice come out. And it's essentially saying what comes out of you when you're under pressure is what you are. So you got to kind of work at being this thing that you want when you're when you're at your worst.
But let me give you also a different perspective, right? It's also when we go after this, like, what is my truth, and what are my core values and stuff like that. That can also be very ego based, because ego creates like, oh, here's me, I'm this wonderful person, this is true me, and my fuck ups and my anger, this is not me, this is my trauma. Well, bullshit, I call that. It's like, it's just you reacting to this infinite universe in different ways. Like, that was you, and this is you, and actually our surrender to all those different infinite aspects of ourselves, and realizing like, yes, there is anger in me, yes, there is hate in me, yes, there is like racism in me. Like, last summer, actually, with whole BLM movement, I was actually finally able to recognize and let go of my own racism, stuff like that, right? And instead of like having this wonderful picture, oh, here's me, true me, well, true means infinite, just like the universe. They are kind of the same thing, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm in a relationship. I'm married to an African American woman, and she, over the last year, there was like things, I guess, in my own perception that I didn't realize like were maybe
Right.
slightly prejudiced. And then through dealing with her, I've become a better person by just small things like little things that you second guess about people that you would never do about your own group or something. Like there's minor, I guess you call them minor, imperfections in the way we view each other. And it leads to these like much deeper problems. Then you have a word called prejudice all of a sudden. It's like a disease, same way COVID works through everything. And it's about us being open-minded enough to realize our own faults, and then like growing quick enough to where we're not ever going to do any harm to the people that we love. And a lot of that had to do with the political situation. It was essentially my family voting for one group, and then her family voting for another group.
Yeah.
And me essentially like sort of defending my family slightly, and her being like, well, this is why that's wrong. And me be like, oh, wow, okay. I never realized that. And I, through like some kind of painful self-reflection, had to admit unflattering things about myself, that like maybe the people that I love are not perfect. Maybe I've got to figure out ways to kind of forgive them for things that they've taught me that weren't so right, but also
can you love yourself for being imperfect? That's kind of the question where you want to start.
Absolutely. And it's like, you shouldn't feel guilty for loving people that believe bad things. So it's like, there's not like a guilt by
and you shouldn't think that you shouldn't, right? Because you will kind of.
Exactly. It's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like
totally.
When you swing one way, it goes the other way. It's kind of odd. And that's what's cool about philosophical discussion and self-discovery, is that like, even something where you're like, all right, well, I shouldn't have defended my dad when he defended this guy, because that was, he was being prejudiced and I didn't know it.
And let me
comment
on this.
I shouldn't have defended my cousin or whatever.
Because whenever people use the verb you should or you should not, I think it's a wonderful entry point into some very deep reflection, right? Because when we say, oh, this should not be this way, this is an awesome entry point to understanding like why, like who said that they shouldn't, right? Like if things are this way, they're obviously this way. So if we instead like say, what are the reasons? What am I not yet sensitive to? What am I not seeing here, right? Then it's like we briefly chatted before they started the show about Russia and the situation, right? And on the one hand, I can tell you that like Putin, I can tell you that I hate him, if you will, but I don't, because he's also the perfect manifestation of so many different energies in that, geographical region, right? So things are the way they are because of some really important reasons. So I like, saying that you should, like, it is, right? So then you act, but then when you're able to see that, then your actions, they don't come from the judgment. It's like, things should not be this way, and I know what's right, and this is bad, I'm going to kind of fix that. Okay, that's one energy, right? But another one is like, okay, things are the way they are. For me, it's like my life force, if you will, pulls me to act this way, and for some of my reasons, right? It doesn't mean that this is wrong, but all of this is just the aspects of how life flows, so we can act, if you will, out of love instead of like out of resistance.
Yeah. By the way, what do you think about simulation theory?
Yeah. Oh man,
it's fascinating.
Right, let's go there. Yes, I love it.
It would be so cool if you could ever find out if it's true or not, right?
I know. Like, look at what we're trying to do at SuperWorld. Like I mean, what if we do create something that's indiscernible from reality? Then what is our reality? I mean, it's like, if we can create something that's real, and we look the same, then we're probably fake. I mean, I heard some scientists essentially saying that if the universe is finite, it's fake. If it's infinite, it's not. Essentially saying that if it can fit within inside of something, then it can be reproduced. If not, it can't.
Right.
So, and I think it's almost that simple in some ways, but then we still argue over whether it is or isn't infinite. Everybody says it's infinite, but scientists don't actually totally agree on that. They're kind of like trying to prove it or disprove it every day. But we think
it's like, when we talk about scientists, right? I mean, that's our perception that, oh, they're the real experts. And I grew up with a very scientific mindset, and I still have that mindset. But it's also like when you look deeper into this and you say, okay, here's science and it's true, and here's magic and it's not true. But you look at science and it looks very legit, like, so well structured, and here you have your theories and stuff. And then you have dark energy and dark matter. Like, what are they? Oh, we don't know. So we're gonna say, like, here's the theory, it works so perfectly, and this part doesn't work, and we call it dark energy. Okay, what if we called it magic? What does it change, right? We just change the label on something, right? So it's like, yeah. So for me, science is an amazing way humans try to understand themselves and the universe. And one of my big realizations some time ago was that no model will ever equate reality, right? It's like atoms, or molecules, wonderful models and whatnot. And in the reality, there is no such thing as molecules or atoms, right? Because people think they're actually this little, spheres of stuff and whatnot. Well, these are all our models of the reality. And they're useful for something, but also like, if we start confusing that this is the actual reality, then we kind of start, really going in the wrong direction, if you will.
Yeah, I want to, and this is awesome, because I think Nate and I both love this topic, and we can kind of go really deep with this, and would love to do this as well. I'm curious about your art, and hearing more about what you're doing in the art world, and hear about the inspiration behind that.
And I mean, the first level answer is like nothing, right? Because I'm a guy who grew up with computer science and math and whatnot. So like, art for me is like, what is art? Like, I don't know, I'm scared of it. But my second answer is like, it's everything, right? It's the way you talk to people, it's the way you make love, it's the way you cook, it's the way you take pictures, it's the way you write, it's the way you compose a message, it's the way you send emoji. All of this is art, right? It's just like different humans, they found the different ways to manifest their creativity and their art, right? So when I look at my son Vitalik, so his art is like this very deep thinking and envisioning and explaining. So this is his art. And I look at my daughter, his sister Misha, and when as she was growing up, and we're trying to get her interested in like computer and sciences stuff, and she's like, no, it doesn't seem to resonate. But she's an awesome artist in terms of visual arts, and she draws and she does this and that. So every human is full of that art and creativity. It's just like our mind story is like, oh, this is art, this is not art. And I say, fuck that. There is so much art. You take a glass of water, you look at the bubbles, and you take a picture of that. And there's so much art that can be found when you're really deeply connecting with anything and everything, right?
Yeah, it's even unintentional. I mean, if you look out your window there, I was looking out there as you were talking, and the art of it, the art of looking at something beautiful. Like, so you have all the buildings, these are all utility features, they're all serving a purpose, but we care about them because of what they are on, the backdrop, the land that they sit on, even their physical structure that we perceive. Everything is, we need it to be appealing, or we don't care. And that's where art comes in. Like, it literally fits into everything that we do, because we're just the kind of organisms that need to be attracted to things for whatever reason that is. I mean, for sure, we're not the only ones, but it's so important to weave it into everything. And like, a lot of the photographs that you take, well, like, what is it that you look for? Because I saw one today, it was like a watering can, and you had the next one that was like a flower.
Yes.
And it made me think, like, that inanimate object that gives life to the flower is controlled by us. Like, what controls us that's moving us when we don't see it? Like, and I think maybe that was like the message that you were trying to send through that, or at least the fact that, like, this is still
and I love your interpretation of that, right? Like, for me personally, I just looked at it and it's like, I like it. Why don't I take a picture and post it, right? And it's really interesting because then so many humans out there, they all like, and this is art and photography and so many things. they're really pointers, right? They're, instead of communicating something very specific and tangible, they're very diffuse and, unspecific, and through that you can actually communicate so much more. I look at this, you saw those pictures, Nate, on my Instagram feed. I took those pictures of some beautiful sunsets in the last few days, right? And I just look at them and I feel so much joy in my heart and so much love for universe, for existence. And I just like, okay, and then I'm compelled to take them and put them out there. Like, why am I doing this? I can come up with a wonderful story or whatever, right? Maybe I'm getting and again, depending on my own story about myself, what can be story? Oh, yeah, I put it out there. Maybe I'll get more likes and then I feel more important, blah, blah, blah. The different story can be, I just kind of want to share my love and my joy and all kinds of stories. But at the end of the day, things are just happening, right? And then people have different reactions and you interact with people and who knows how it affects them, right? So really, it's like,
affected me.
Yeah, for sure, right? And this is, it's
I
really
look for
about
your stuff every
ourselves. It's about ourselves connecting deeper and deeper with what are the ways that life flows through us, and just like surrendering to that, and like also seeing how that impacts people around us, right? And just observing all of that. There's so much learning and wisdom is found in this process.
Yeah, I think one of the things one of the things we're really passionate about is kind of what you're talking about. It, in terms of SuperWorld, is we've created a world which is like a palette, like an open palette where you can do anything and share anything in the world. And so, that's kind of what really inspires, I think, all of our team is how do we kind of help you express that creativity and other people to discover that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's huge, like I look at my kids, right? And my youngest, Kate, she's been spending with their school being online and whatnot. Like the last year, she invested I don't know, thousands of hours playing Minecraft and Roblox, right?
Yeah.
And they're, if you will, very little versions of the stuff that you're trying to build, right? So for me, you can say, oh, she's wasting so much time doing this stuff. You can say that, but also her mind is really learning so many ways to be creative and interact. And then she comes to me like, hey, Daddy, look at this house I've built. Look at this, right? Like, it's an amazing way to express her creativity, her art.
I have a question about that as well, as I think about as a parent. And you've obviously have amazing kids, and my kids are young, and I'm just curious about, as you think about technology and art and life, and there's some people who say, hey, no screen time or screen time. Just curious on how you thought about that with your children growing up.
In general, I would say resistance is futile, right? Like, life keeps evolving. The reality of our current life is all of this stuff, devices and screens and social media. And we can try to resist that and say, oh, that way was better. Well, it was better. It was perfect for the time. Now it's a different time. And this is how universe evolves. And we can try and stick to oh, this is how it should be. But again, now then we're saying that word should. Right? Okay, let's instead observe how things are. So for me, it's in general, I'm very libertarian in terms of my approach to parenting, if you will, right? And really, I think that for most people, it's our fears that compulsively trying to we're trying to control, oh, you know what, we inside of us, we think, oh, we kind of fucked up in a way, but if we better control our kids, then they will be so much happy and better. Well, good luck with that. I can tell you right off the bat that the world will find a way to fuck them up in a different way, and however much you try to control. So end of the day, it's really, how can we keep them safe? How can we share with them our love? And how can we expose them to the beauty of this world and give them as many creative opportunities as we can? So that's kind of the way I think about it.
That's awesome.
And being then responsive to what is resonating, what is not resonating.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything with when raising Vitalik that you think you kind of did that other parents weren't doing, or anything that, like, we talk about limiting screen time. Was there something that you did or even didn't do, like, that you think contributed to him giving the world such a cool gift?
When he was pretty young, we gave him our old IBM PC, so he's had his own computer from very young age, like 3 or 4, right? And and in a way, that was me. I knew that if I was a kid, at his age, I would have loved to have that, right? And I only got my first computer when I was like, whatever, 19, beyond that. But it was also, okay, I'm giving this child this computer, and there are all kinds of issues with that. And being online, right? Should I install this spyware? Should I do this and that? And I looked at this, I can listen to my fears, and I decided not to, right? And then he was playing with his computers, and sometimes he would come to me and say, hey, Dad, like, my computer is not working. I'm like, okay, let's look at this. And then I go and look at his computer, and he just playing with it, exploring. He deleted his system directory in Windows. Like, okay, let's try to fix that, right? But that's also part of his exploration, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's sensitivity and trust. Let's trust as a default as much as we can. And let's be sensitive in what is happening, right? Like, do we feel that kind of they need more help and support and stuff like that? So for me, the whole attempt at controlling stuff and trying to really rigidly keep it safe, they always backfire, right? And whether we're talking about societies, whether we talk about building organizations or whatever, or whether we talk about parenting.
It's beautiful, man. Is there like a moment that you would say would make you the most proud as a parent? It doesn't even have to be for Vitalik, just in general.
Sorry, I didn't quite get there. Beginning of the question.
Like your most proud moment as a parent, just in general, not like just related to Vitalik, but just in general for any of your children.
It's a difficult question for me because, if you will, I no longer buy the concept of being proud, right? Because every time when we say, oh, I'm proud of this, it's kind of like, this is my achievement. Then we also lost some sensitivity to like, okay, yeah, it was me and the whole universe who achieved that. So I can tell you there are so many things I'm proud about Vitalik, and I'm proud about this painting that Misha has created, about this thing, this little write-up. But also it's like, as long as I'm not connecting with like, I did that, right? Because whenever we come to anything with the energy that like it was me, then this energy always brings the dark side of this is like, when people come to you and say, you're responsible for that, right? And this can be really crazy. Like, I actually had a person today who called me out of the blue, and his parents have died, and my heart goes out to him, and his mind immediately went to the possibility that he was somehow like connected to that, and he wasn't, right? Like, but this is our mind. The mind tries to get control of stuff, and this is so dangerous. Like, as they say, pride comes before the fall, and it's a nice saying, but like there's so much deep wisdom in this fact. So but going back to your question, like, again, like so many things, like for me to even look at Vitalik's presentation about Ethereum, or even when he started working at Bitcoin magazine, even before Ethereum, and this kid, and he's 18, 17 back at the time, and he's the editor of Bitcoin magazine. He's writing this awesome articles. Like, I did feel quite proud, but like maybe not proud, but I felt excited and happy about this, right? Like, it's like look at what life has created here, right? Through me, through so many other aspects of this, through his mom, through his friends, through his school, through Canada, through Soviet Union, like through books, through so many things, right? So this all has manifested in this, right? Isn't that beautiful?
It is. It's crazy. I mean, if you, it's wild once you start linking all the pieces together. So like I've just me and Rich we've had a bunch of things kind of happen, and kind of our timeline that have kind of like it's been very strange, and just the way everything works out is really interesting. A lot of my journey into even knowing what Ethereum was like listening to a Joe Rogan interview with Ben Gertzel, who he knows, and and now I'm here talking to you. It's weird how everything there's kind of layers on top of reality, and and all the opportunities that are created because maybe you didn't limit Vitalik's screen time, and maybe that helped him create Ethereum, which in turn helped Rich and I form a relationship, which helped us get to this interview. I mean, there's no saying what one decision even as a parent could lead to in terms of affecting the entire world, and that's so fascinating.
And you also have to surrender to the fact that there are unlimited consequences of every decision on a limited number of people, right? Because some of the critics of Ethereum, they'll tell you that people have lost tons of money in the previous, ICO boom and whatnot. And it's possible that maybe even somebody killed themselves because they were so desperate losing that money. Is that all the consequence of that? It is, right? So you can never say, oh, all of the good stuff, you have to take all of the stuff that's happening, right? And when you're really, really able to see that clearly, then you can finally see that reality as such is neutral. It's just doing its stuff. And there are unlimited consequences of everything. And it's our human mind that is trying to say, oh, it's because of this, here's the causality. Like Vitalik's dad did this parenting or whatever, and Vitalik has this. Well, okay, then should I be proud for all of the awesome stuff? Should I take the blame, and should I feel guilty for some of the challenging things? And there are tons of challenging things related to it, no doubt about that, right?
Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah, that blew my mind. Because you just gave me the complete opposite.
Yeah, I'm loving this.
This
is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's so cool.
We gotta hang, man. Dima, we gotta hang.
Seriously.
We gotta go to Bali together or something, or Tulum or something.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it was why am I here talking to Nate? I don't know. We connected, and Nate is sending me this message. I'm like, this guy, he feels nice. He feels a bit crazy. That's my kind of guy. Let me talk to him, right?
That's what we have in common too.
Right. He doesn't feel like a serial killer. And then he invites me to talk about, here's the show about art and photography. I'm like, art and photography. How the fuck am I related to this? But why not, right? Let's have fun.
Well, that's the thing. Like you said, art is everything.
Yes.
And I try to find the art in people too. Your personality is art. That's another thing that I think that people don't realize. When I've watched an interview with you, and you're kind of you get passionate about things. Yeah. You have real opinions. You're a strong-minded person, and I think it's cool that people can see that in a way that's not so stuffy and interviewy. That's why I wanted to get you in talking about philosophy and meditation and DMT and art. And, these are the good things. We could talk about blockchain all day and stuff.
Why not?
But
all is love,
all
right?
Yeah, it's all love. Love is
never
the
forget
answer,
that.
Too. That's the thing. That's why it's my name on Twitter and all that. I got that from listening to Lex Friedman all the time, actually, because he says it at the end of everything. Love is the answer. And I think it's true, because it's brought me together with people like you both, just very cool people, and it's given me opportunities in one way, but what I prefer are relationships. I like talking to interesting people. I like that feeling when you feel like your soul just connected with somebody in a way where it's maybe you knew each other in a past life or something. These are very interesting ways.
Yes, and maybe think about this as you realizing that actually you've never been disconnected, right? Go beyond that kind of thought. Yeah.
Yeah, the disconnection is just a perception. It's maybe we're all wired into each other the whole time. We just didn't have our eyes open. It's not maybe, is it? We are very connected. That's the thing. We start to look behind the curtain a little bit of this stuff. The more we kind of relax, and that's where meditation is so important. It allows you to just like you said, see that things are more neutral.
For sure, yeah, a tool for self-discovery and so many aspects of blossoming for the human being.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you believe in God?
Absolutely.
Very cool.
And I'm a 100% atheist too, right? So it's really confusing. My mom actually recently, as she's been watching my journey, she's very cautiously asking me, Dima, I'm reading some of the stuff that you write here and there on Facebook and whatnot, and have you become this, and she's not asking in those words, but basically she's asking, Dima, have you become this crazy religious fanatic or something like that? I'm like, Mom, all is good, but yeah, like to your question, I now have deep connection and understanding with God, and it's very different from their. It's very unique for every human being. What the hell does that mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not some guy in the sky. It's like it's me and you, and it's like this conversation happening. That's all part of that. So
it's everything. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. Nature, everything. The bird that flies by your window in the morning, like it's all related. We're not paying attention sometimes enough because we're caught up in
and us not paying attention. Important. Us not paying attention, that's also part of God, right? So like again, infinite regression of all of that, because human mind is constantly trying to like define that, oh, this is true me and this is God, but this is not. Like, then what is this, right? When you really surrender, when you really see that all is God, then it becomes very different perspective on things.
You are everything and you are nothing. That saying, right? Like
yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy. What about aliens?
I haven't met any yet, even though some people
right?
think that Vitalik is an alien. So then maybe I think he came from me, but like maybe then, like who knows? Am I a simulation? Am I an alien? So many joyful opportunities, right?
That's awesome. The thing. Speaking of him, does it get frustrating? Like people are always just trying to talk to you to get to Vitalik. I'm sure that's kind of annoying at times, but
well,
how do you feel about that?
The only thing that frustrates us is our expectation, right? Like if we expect things to be different, then like, oh, they should not. Well, again, that should. Like, okay, they talk to me, and some people they ask a question, and I try to help, or I cannot help, and somebody tells me, hey, like do this, or you're like, I'm in this bad situation, and please send me whatever, some crypto, it'll save my life. And I say, no. And then they tell me, well, I hope that you and all of your family will die. I'm like, huh, interesting.
That's nice. Good thing you didn't give them the money.
Right? But again,
they didn't. That's why they didn't deserve it.
But this is all God, right? Like, this is kind of
God,
like, as long as you really deeply connect with that, right? These are all manifestations, all of our desires and fears and attachments, and our beautiful creations, art, and and dog shit. They all kind of part of the same thing. They're all the same thing, which is another thing, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about?
Go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
I was going to say, what do you think about what's just got me thinking about as we're creating and innovating, what's happening in the world with people like Elon, who are just kind of taking their visions and really creating realities that that are just awesome. Like, what do you think about that? It's amazing, right? I'm in awe of people who find the internal freedom. And for me, Vitalik is one of those humans that, and that attracts people to him because they can sense that freedom, the freedom to create, the freedom to be who they are, the freedom to be on a show and, like Elon, and he can smoke a joint, right? I think it's amazing because, right, like for a long time, humans, they, like the whole educational system and the media, okay, this is how things should be, right? And now with all of their access to information and whatnot, we can see that things are different, right? And people can get inspiration from all of those different people, doing different things. And it's interesting also, but human mind then jumps in and tries to, again, like define good and bad. Like on Twitter recently, somebody said, but what do you think about Elon Musk? He should not have, tweeted about Doggy crypto coin because this will affect people. Of course, it will affect people, right? But everything will affect people, right? And Elon Musk is not like some artificial construct that we want him to be. He's doing good stuff or whatever. He's infinite universe, and he'll be doing this, and sending those rocket ships, and building Tesla, tweeting about this stuff, and people will lose money again. Unlimited consequences of everything, right? It's like when we deeply accept that, this is where we find our freedom and love. Yeah.
Absolutely. Where do you think Vitalik stands on that kind of Mount Rushmore of tech innovators? Because you mentioned him in the same breath with Elon. I would say so. I mean, in my book, for
again,
sure.
like, how do we compare? And human mind wants to compare, right? Like, oh, like, let's do this criteria, let's do this ranking, right? Like,
yeah,
every human being, you and me, right? You with all of your stuff, me and you, Hrish, it's like, we all just unique expressions of the universe, right? And again, human mind then wants to make like, oh, this is more important. Like, who knows, right? Maybe you and, you know, then your child and this and that, and there will be some new technology happening 50 years from now because of what you did. Maybe of the word you said to a stranger on the street yesterday, right? Maybe that stranger, you know, that changed the course of history, and 50 years from today, somebody will invent a spaceship which will take us to, I don't know, different galaxies. Who knows, right? It's all part of this, us living in awe of all of this stuff constantly unfolding, infinite.
That's one thing that's interesting about Ethereum is it provides the opportunities for everybody to dream, in the sense that, like, it's tearing down some borders a little bit, and you know, spending money.
Fertile ground for so much innovation, right? That like somebody from India, Pakistan, Russia, and whatnot, like, look at Russia. Russia is right now constrained and run by a bunch of crazy dictatorial thieves and murderers, but so many awesome, smart people there. And then, you know, they can fundraise in crypto to kind of support the position. So many smart Russians involved in crypto industry, right? So yeah, like Ethereum is one of those enabling technologies that is definitely helping the world to continue its evolution and involvement of more and more human minds, human spirits, into more creativity, you know.
It's amazing. I think, it's the example of like kids in, you know, India, Pakistan, Russia, any country that has kind of less opportunity. It's so cool that they can essentially be the same in that respect, in the computer science way, as somebody in the U.S.
The
or
recent
even
hack
Toronto
was
there.
like for whatever, 10 millions of dollars. Who knows? Maybe it was a child in Africa, right? And
I almost hope it was.
in a way, right? It's like, why
I know,
not?
it's like
because
that Robin Hood
somebody
mentality
is there, and you know, you have your brains, you have internet access, and so many more opportunities are finally open up for so many more human beings. How can we not be in awe of that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. This whole system that we're a part of it's revolutionary, but it's also freedom at the same time. Like how you said, people have these styles of these innovators, like how Vitalik will wear like a T-shirt with a cat on it, and there's a UFO in the background, or something. Like, this is important for people to see,
because he can be an example of, hey guys, you don't have to be this guy in a suit running this crazy inhuman corporation. You can be this childish looking smart whatever person in a crazy T-shirt and picking his nose and creating this amazing beauty. And you know, like, it's so it gives so much hope to every human being, right? We don't have to be like, oh, I'm not that, so it means that I cannot be happy and successful. Like, success, this is just like one of many manifestations of this, but I truly believe that happiness and peace and joy, they're intrinsically available to any and every human being. And now we're just like having more opportunities for humans to connect with that.
Yeah, that's what we're really passionate about, is people expressing themselves, like, you know, being themselves, expressing their art, their beauty, their passions. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Is there a place in SuperWorld that you'd like to own? If we would hook you up with a plot somewhere, maybe somewhere in your former home, maybe somewhere where you live now. It'd be interesting to see what you would choose.
Yeah, like I love mountains, you know, like I grew up in this region of Russia, which was very mountainy, and I love being kind of in that kind of place where there are mountains and, you know, those views and stuff like that. And
you said near, that's Chechnya region? Or, is that what you said? Okay,
that's where I grew up,
Yeah, I only know from watching mixed martial arts and stuff. I only know that region and those countries from there. I'm not very familiar, but I know that it's beautiful from what I've seen. I think it would be cool to get you something over there, but even If you'd want something in Toronto or any
Yeah,
of that
why
stuff
not?
too. I don't think that building behind you is available anymore, but maybe you could buy your own building. We'll see,
Yeah.
but we won't publicize that one. Yeah, man. As far as, you know, I hate to harp on the thing with Vitalik too much, but as far as, you know, future accomplishments in his, you know, I know you said it's not like up to us to kind of put those expectations on people, but like, where would you like to see him go with it? If it was up to you, if it was kind of,
I just want him to be happy, right? Like, you know, I want him to be deeply sensitive to what is bringing him excitement and joy. And I know that, like, when people really connect with that, this is kind of the biggest impact that comes from that, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at kind of Ethereum ecosystem, I think that for the next few years at least, there is still quite a bit for him to do, even though the system is much less, the ecosystem, the community is much less reliant on Vitalik. Now there are so many amazing people doing so many awesome things and, you know, interacting. And, you know, what happens after that? Yeah, I'm really excited to see what attracts his attention. I know that he's been interested, he has a wide range of interests, and their longevity stuff and all kinds of other stuff are on his radar.
Cool.
So yeah, let's kind of see what happens there.
Yeah, I'd love to see him get involved in some of these other areas and see what he could come up with, because it's very interesting, I think. I think I heard Elon Musk talking about that in an interview the other day about how, you know, there's a lot of things he'd like to get involved in, but he wants to finish what he's working on now first before anything. So I think that's super important, what you said about expectations, though, because it's cool that you're not up here like, I'd like to see him get 2.0 done immediately or anything. You know, like I'm sure he's got enough pressure there. You know, I think it's really interesting. How's your relationship right now? You guys?
It's pretty good. I haven't seen him in a while because he spent the first half of last year in Toronto, and then he went to Singapore, and that's kind of where he's spending most his time right now. And you know, we chat here and there, and we stay in touch, and sometimes exchange silly pictures and tweets and whatnot. And I miss him. I haven't seen him in a while, so I'm looking for an opportunity to give him kind of in-person hug and all of that.
Big hug.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can all come together soon and give each other a big hug too. We'd like to see you at one of these ETH conferences one day.
That'd be awesome.
Sure. Hop in the booth, you know.
Yeah, let's do something together. I'd love to just get to know you more and meet up in person, and you know, really appreciate about how you think about the world. I'm very much in line with all of those things about you know, as we discussed, you know, the untethered soul and the surrender experiment and living in surrender, and awareness is another book I really love. You know, which I've actually just recently read. But let me, you know, I know we're kind of coming upon the time, and thank you again for taking the time. If you were going to leave our audience with, you know, something that you kind of, you know, think is really important, you know, a saying or, you know, a billboard or something that you think kind of encapsulates, you know, what you're passionate about or what you're thinking, what would that be?
I would say looking for ways to be more sensitive to ourselves, understanding ourselves more deeply in a compassionate way, right? Without judgment. And through all the different tools out there, from meditation to psychedelics to whatnot, and coming to that exploration with our heart full of compassion and curiosity, right? Not judgment, like, oh, here's true me and here's not true me. Like, the universe put all of this stuff in you, right? And the more we can look at all of this stuff that exists in every human being with all of its sides, you know, light, dark, whatever we want to call them, and surrender to the fact, here's me, an infinite human being with infinite potential, and appreciate that. That's kind of where the real magic starts to happen. It's awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate you for this.
Thank you.
I feel like you've helped me too, just by listening to kind of the way you give your calm wisdom. It feels like I'm talking, well, I am talking to a dad, obviously, but you have a very cool fatherly vibe to you, and I appreciate that. I really
awesome
appreciate the way you were.
Guys.
Yeah, it's cool how kind you were to me when I was contacting you. I was kind of nervous to talk to you, so I really appreciate it, and we'll be in contact. I'll hit you up, and we'll get you these plots, and hopefully we could, I don't know, meditate together at some time, or just kind of do something to just something to kind of connect. You're an awesome human.
Do something fun and crazy, right?
Yeah, you can make fun of me in person.
What's the best way to find you online and what you're up to?
I have a website, which is my last name, www.buterin.com. So that's a starting point. But then in terms of like social media, I'm most active on Twitter. And then I have my Instagram where I put all of these pictures. Anybody who wants to look at pretty and crazy and interesting pictures, you're welcome.
Yeah, and seriously check it out on Instagram. And your Twitter, I believe, is Black Geek Dima, right? And then your Dmitry Buterin
Black
on
Geek Dima.
Okay.
Right on.
Cool. Yeah, and everybody definitely check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about these sunsets, but that's only the start. All these beautiful pictures of Toronto and even pictures of ice that you've taken that I sat there and stared at for 10 minutes. So I don't know. I'm a fan. We really appreciate you again, and we'd love to have you on again sometime soon.
Thank you, guys. Good talking to you.
Thank you.
Love the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We love you, man.
Bye.
Take care.
See you. Love you, man. See ya.
Love you.